Hello, welcome to another episode of Criminal Record Episode 7 Recap and Ending Explained. Why did Errol Mathis make a confession? In the 6th episode of Criminal Record, June Lenker confronted Hegarty at the police station and demanded a full explanation. She was tired of avoiding the issue, and she wanted him to be honest. She informed him that, because he was concealing information, a criminal was at large and could harm other women. Finally, Hegarty consented, and he transported Lenker back in time and informed her of what transpired during the Errol Mathis case. Let's break down Criminal Record Episode 7 and see what Hegarty wants to do next. Warning, spoiler alert. What was Hegarty's initial impression of Errol? There was mayhem on the streets, and the authorities had no idea how to put an end to it.
What sort of a fight?
Shout.
Shops were vandalized, public property was damaged, and innocent people died. And the police stood by, observing everything and unable to see how they might restore law and order. The authorities were criticized for their inaction and inability to protect the citizens. The police officers were under a lot of strain, and they were keen to identify a scapegoat and set an example to reclaim their lost reputation. During the turmoil, a woman called Adelaide Burrows was savagely stabbed in her home. Adelaide's partner, Errol Mathis, had fled with her child, Patrick, but they were caught up in an accident before they could escape. Some others suspected Errol crashed his car intentionally since he knew he wouldn't be able to save himself and would be arrested. Hegarty was the chief investigating officer, and as soon as Errol Mathis was taken into jail, he felt stressed since the entire department expected him to discover incriminating evidence against the offender and restore the police force's lost glory. Hegarty had reservations from the start, and he suspected Errol did not murder his companion, although he made certain assumptions, as did his colleagues Tony and Kim. Tony was a bigot of the first degree, so he had already identified Errol as the perpetrator, and Kim had his own prejudices. Hegarty made it clear that he would not take any action against Errol unless he had sufficient proof linking him to the crime or if he knew about other incidences of violence that revealed his behavioral patterns. Errol stated that he couldn't recall anything from the time he entered the flat. He insisted that he had not killed his partner and that he loved Patrick much too much to willfully wreck his car. Errol informed everyone he had an alibi, and he was not at the house when Adelaide was murdered. After then, Henry's concerns regarding Errol's innocence grew stronger, but he had no idea how to proceed with their inquiry. What did Errol's father tell Henry? In Episode 7 of Criminal Record, it was revealed that Hegarty's personal life was chaotic as well. He was unable to devote adequate time to his daughter, Lisa, and felt horrible about it. The poor girl had recently lost her mother and was constantly asking her father when he would be home. Hegarty had brought her a dog to keep her company, but he knew it wasn't enough. She needed attention and affection. Meanwhile, Mustafa Demir was summoned to the police station, as Errol had informed Hegarty that he was in the former's salon looking for work when Adelaide was murdered. The interrogation proceeded just as Mustafa had instructed June Lenker in the last episode of Criminal Record. There were 10 images in front of Mustafa, and he was asked who came to his establishment. Obviously, the man was under a lot of pressure, and he couldn't recognize Errol since he'd only met him once, and that was very briefly. Hegarty proceeded to tell Errol that Mustafa didn't recognize him, and Errol said that, while he couldn't recall what happened when he entered the house, he was certain that he hadn't killed his partner. Hegarty had learned that Mustafa had assaulted his father years before, and he knew that if he could get his father to testify, he would have a good case against Errol. So Hegarty went to meet Errol's father and spoke to him. Hegarty was a superb manipulator, and he appealed to Mr. Mathis' emotional side, asking him to tell him what had happened between him and Errol back in the day. Mr. Mathis did not go on record, but he did tell Hegarty that when Errol was 17, he stabbed him. Mr. Mathis showed Hegarty the scar on his stomach and explained that the father and son had not spoken since that day. In addition to Mr. Mathis' testimony, Patrick told Hegarty that his mother and Errol had frequent heated disagreements, and Errol once threatened to beat her. It was enough for Hegarty to assume Errol had murdered his companion, but he was also aware that he lacked sufficient proof to incriminate him. Why did Errol Mathis make a confession? In Episode 7 of Criminal Record, Hegarty successfully returned Errol Mathis to the crime site. He was aware that being at the scene of his beloved partner's savage stabbing would have a negative impact on his mental health. Hegarty effectively tortured the victim and indoctrinated him into believing he had committed the crime. Errol was so full of guilt at the time that if he had been sentenced to death, he would have happily accepted it. So, in the end, Errol Mathis confessed to the crimes he did not commit, and it all worked out for Hegarty, Tony, Kim, and the entire police department. Errol was traumatized, and Hegarty took advantage of that. However, it is stated that the truth always emerges, even when the entire world tries to hide it. Sonia posted the call recording of the Hayes Lane caller on the internet, claiming that it was her boyfriend who killed Adelaide Burrows and that law enforcement had falsely accused an innocent man. In the last episode of Criminal Record, we'll see if Hegarty and his colleagues can conceal the truth or expose how they unfairly convicted a guy for crimes he didn't commit. Thank you for watching.